Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my overview of Shadows of Doubt. So this has gone 1.0. This is a game that I actually covered extensively in early access. We did a playthrough. I've got like a dozen hours on my profile, so it's a little bit different from my normal overview format. I usually just go in for 2 hours blind and pass judgment on that. I did jump back into the 1.0 build. I've started a fresh profile and given, you know, the tutorial and the beginning scenario a bit of a red hot go as well, and it's all so solid. So yes, I highly recommend this game. I think it's worth your time, worth your money. It is designed in such a way with a core loop and systems sandbox so that arguably your mileage is infinite. It is one of those games that you could just keep playing as long as you keep getting value out of it. From what I understand in that early access time, because it only spent about a year in early access and then fully released, which is great. I hate early access. I don't need to retread this, but it's often abused more than kind of used earnestly. So it's good to see a game only spend a short amount of time in there, get all the bugs and crap ironed out, put a little bit more content in, and then just hit release. Sick of all this cradle to grave live service nonsense. It's 1.0, cool. They should move on to their next project, which I would happily look forward to. But anyway, the core of this game is that you're a private investigator, right? They've created a kind of tongue-in-cheek cyber dystopia a la Blade Runner. The leading government is actually a corporation that got voted in. Starch Cola enforcers run the police and such. It's all just a bit of an on-ramp to create a scenario where you have a dispassionate government that doesn't really investigate crimes, and that creates more of a space for you to thrive in. So you're a bit of a down on your luck ex-police officer, sort of veteran affairs type dude. You can play straight into a pre-constructed scenario that tutorializes you very thoroughly and well on the core of solving a case. And then after that, you're basically put into a slum apartment in a basement with nothing to your name, and you just got to work your way up. And a lot of that is going to be doing sort of little busy work side quests where you investigate someone's adultery, or maybe you steal an item for someone or smash up an apartment, like your fairly low level stuff, while you wait for the big ticket item, which is the murder case. So to understand the appeal of this game, it runs on an internal system that all little citizens are going about their day-to-day business on a bit of a routine, and everything from the ground up is constructed so as to aid in the experience as someone investigating a crime. And look, I would compare this to other games that usually this sort of thing, a systems-based, civilian-run living world, is more in economies in video games. Examples, Victoria 3's economy to a point. Distant Worlds 2, I always bring that up as an example. Well, you build whatever you build, but underneath you, the civilian economy does their own thing. They create supply and demand, and the little ships will try and run their own individual profit. Quite wonderful. X4, probably the biggest example. A lot of people will know that these empires will build and fight, and businesses rise and fall based on demand. And it really helps with immersion for me and for those like me that are pretty much more interested in being a small fish in a big pond, as opposed to the power fantasy that you get from the majority of games. So in this case, the city just keeps going along. It's all sort of a block by block, big square, beautifully done. There's a verticality to the world as well. So you live in a lot of tall tenements. We're talking like 30-story buildings. And there's citizens living in each of those little apartments, and they all go to work, and they have their routines and their friends, and they essentially leave paper trails. People leave fingerprints on everything they touch. They leave little footsteps as well. Now it all fades as well. It doesn't overload the system. And you know, there's survival light components. You can get injured, you can have legs broken, that sort of stuff. You need rest up. You can't die, but you can be hospitalized and have to pay hospital bills, so you can get crippled by debt. Eating, drinking, sleeping, showering, all these things will give you positive and negative debuffs to your stat line, and presumably all the little AI characters are going about doing the same sort of stuff as well. But they send each other emails, they make plans, they create basically paper trails, both physically and virtually, including things like security cameras, ones that detect motion to raise alarms and catch you out if you're trespassing, but other ones that essentially take little snapshots and put them in a hard drive storage, essentially, that you can break into a security room, you can go through the video files, and you can dig back out evidence. You can find people entering into apartments that they shouldn't be doing. So again, the game is built on this idea that all the systems moving along are there to kind of fuel the murder investigation. And so look, I'm no expert on how it works perfectly, but the idea is that there's generally one murderer active in the world, but they probably take a couple of days to sort of set up their target, as in, you know, sending them death threats or creating email chains. Maybe it's a lover that's, you know, finally gonna snap and kill their partner or whatever, but, you know, they will have to essentially create like an email chain, that sort of thing. So there's this preamble going on at any given time. And then finally the murder happens. You essentially get like a pager bump saying murder reported at this address. Now, if you're really fast, you can get there before the enforcers. Break in, whatever, lockpick, because it's got this immersive sim component to it. You know, you can punch down doors, you can try and bribe your way into people's apartments. Hey, can I look around if I give you $100? Oh yeah, sure, why not? You can find hidden keys under doormats, you can go in through air vents. There's so many different ways to skin the cat. But if you're quick, you can get in there, you can catch the fresh crime scene, and start investigating it before the enforcers rock up. If you're too slow, they will come in, they'll bash in the door, they'll do a sweep. Hopefully they don't catch you there, but you can hide under a bed or try and escape. And then they will cordon off the crime scene and post a guard on the door as well. So maybe you do just want to wait until they get out of the way and then try and sort of sneak in and investigate. But then, you know, it kicks off. You've got yourself a body. You can search it, find an ID on them perhaps. People have ID cards and this will fill out the case form that you work with, and you've got like a pin wall that you can tie all the things together. But things like everyone has their own unique fingerprints and you want to try and tie them to a person specifically. Boot size is another component. Blood type can come up. So searching someone and trying to figure out all their details is important. Know their place of work, their place of residence. Do they have a partner? Do they have friends? Anything like that? There are certain pillars of what this game is built upon, like in someone's apartment. They will, in their cupboard, have a storage box full of documentation with their tenancy agreement, I believe like a bill itemization of the past however long, you know, basic information that you need. Again, they should have an ID card with all their pertinent details. And you're just trying to tie it all together and figure out motive, trying to find passwords to crack into email accounts, into computers, or into safes even. Find murder weapons, fingerprints on murder weapons. And at the core of it, you've got like a case file that you get from City Hall, and it has like a questionnaire, like 5 questions. You know, who is the murderer? Do you have supplemental proof, murder weapon, photograph, that sort of stuff, right? So you can sort of just fire and hope. You can try and arrest the person as well. But it's one of those things, the more thorough that you lock in the solving of it, the better your cash reward, which then goes into kind of soft meta progression. You start in like a basement shithole kind of free apartment, but you're incentivized to at least cosmetically climb. There's a social credit score that increases as you solve cases. So as much as you get the rewards to buy stuff, the social component is kind of your XP tree. There's a gene splicing sort of mini RPG element to it, which, you know, you can use that to increase your inventory size, you know, more permanent RPG upgrades. But also you can just buy beds, showers, that sort of thing. So you can buy a vending machine and put it in your house, if I recall, you know, so you stay well fed. But there is something to it, man. It just flows really well. And it is a sort of a living world sim that works for me. You'll go to a diner and order a donut while you're waiting for that next call. They've implemented like an auto pathing thing, which is weird at first, and then you realize a lot of this game is cerebral. A lot of it is spent in that pinboard menu trying to figure out where the next lead is, because it uses systems-based intuition. Yes, it will hold your hand for the first go, but again, if you're not a very bright person, you're going to come up against walls if you can't make jumps of deduction from lining up all the Swiss cheese holes. And so, yeah, okay, I want to go from this building over to that building on the other side of town. You can put it on auto path and your dude will just run, but then you sit in the menu while your dude's running across town and you start trying to figure out what the next step's going to be, what the next clue in the case is. Anyway, it's excellent. Apparently they've added a bunch of different, you know, crimes. I think there's like an assassin sharpshooter. I read that there's like kidnapping as well, so maybe against the clock you can save someone. Eventually you'll come across your first serial killer, and that is just wild, tying this string of sequential things together and trying to catch the dude before he kills again. I remember doing that in my playthrough, and I'm very excited to see what the next step is. I finished the tutorial in this newest playthrough, and I've just gotten the call on a new murder, and I've come in and it looks maybe occultish. There's some sort of symbols on the floor. I found a secret envelope in the apartment about like some medical malpractice, you know, corporate and confidential. Maybe the drug company's involved in knocking this person off. Who knows? But that's the fun, trying to really pull the thread and get to the bottom of it. Anyway, I highly recommend it. Check it out. And it is one of those things that now that it exists and I've played it, it would make it hard to play another investigative game because this sort of sets the bar so high, at least conceptually. And if anything, it doesn't necessarily have to be crime investigation, but my goodness, I would love to see more games that follow this model of the citizenry doing their own thing and you being a small fish, and a game that just sort of makes you feel immersed by your arguably kind of relative insignificance. Anyway, I'm a big fan. You should check it out. Team, might just leave it there for the time being. I'll catch you guys on the next one.